Crane kicking into our 10th spot, it's the Karate Kid for the NES. Notoriously hard and unforgiving, the Karate Kid combined clumsy controls with a very loose storyline that was somewhat based off the movie. Even cheesier than its movie counterpart, our 9th game is Bad Boys: Miami Takedown. The Bad Boys films have a reputation of being so bad they're good. Apparently the game only heard the first half of that. With neither of the main actors returning to voice their characters, and sloppy cover mechanics, this game destroyed everything fun about the films. In a similar vein to the last game on our list, Charlie's Angels is in at number 8. The simplistic storyline and controls are not the worst part about this game. What's really astounding is the fact that they got the 3 main actresses from the film to voice their characters. But you would never guess that because they sound so horrible. Hopping into number 7, it's Who Framed Roger Rabbit for the NES. Plagued by repetitive and difficult gameplay, this tie-in was never going to succeed. Going from building to building, players must ask residents if there are any items in the building, then search for them if there are. Then they have to go and sell these items in a shop. Rinse and repeat. This game should have been recalled. It's Total Recall for the NES at number 6. Clunky controls and lack of checkpoints or saving make this game a trek through a hellish landscape that kind of resembles the 90s film. Not only that, but it's clear the developers may have been a bit confused about which Arnie film they were making a game for, as the death screens read, "I'll be back." A bad game based off a bad movie. It's Catwoman at number 5. With the same copy-paste gameplay seen in some of the other games on our list, the Catwoman game is just about as good as the film it was based off. Who thought this was a good idea? Street Fighter the movie is in at number 4. After a horrible movie adaptation of the beloved fighting game, someone suggested they should make a game based on that movie, which was already based on a game. Of course, this didn't end well, with the finished product being an unbalanced mess. You know the scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark where the Ark caused the Nazis' faces to melt off? Well, that's pretty much what this game did back in 1982. Raiders of the Lost Ark is our number 3. One of the first ever movie tie-in games, Raiders set the terrible standard for the subgenre, with its complicated gameplay and graphics that didn't resemble their real-life counterparts in the slightest. There's nothing super about this game. It's Superman 64 for the Nintendo 64 at number 2. While technically based on the animated series, it's too bad not to put on this list. After Lex Luthor traps Superman in a simulation, he forces him to complete a series of boring and meaningless tasks. Torture for both Superman and the player. Phoning into our top spot, it's E.T. the Extraterrestrial for the Atari 2600. Regarded by many as the worst game of all time, this confusing excuse for a game had players falling into wells to collect items and then levitating back out. The game is also cited as being responsible for the video game crisis of 1989.
The Valve-owned video game Counterstrike is one of an extremely popular franchise. First developed in 1999 by 2 modders, Min Guzman Lay and Jesse Cliff. They used the highly successful Half-Life as a base for their new title. The mod was eventually released in 2000 on Microsoft Windows. Counterstrike is a competitive FPS based around a bomb planting scenario, pitting teams of 5 against each other. One team, the terrorists' objective, is to plant the bomb on one of the 2 sites on the map. After this, they need to hold the site against enemies. The CT's or counter-terrorists' job is to defend the bomb sites and prevent the bomb from going off. Although 1.6 is very old, there are quite a few people who still play. This brings us to the forgotten child of the Counter-Strike series, Condition Zero. This was an attempt at making a story-driven single-player campaign for Counter-Strike fans. Although it was supposed to be a successor, it has now been all but forgotten. At first, fans enjoyed it, but the hype and fun died out rapidly. Some of the changes people didn't like consisted of things like grenades doing too much damage or the hitboxes being too large. The game in all isn't bad, but it was released far too close to CS Source, which was a much bigger success. CS Source, released on November 1st, 2004, introduced an even bigger change to the franchise. The main innovations included enhancements in graphics and sound quality, gameplay and character movement, bunny hopping, spray patterns, and models, which all became part of the mechanics. CS Source is now 11 years old and still holds up as a great game with a large player base. Custom maps and game modes were also added, which started the popular game modes Gun Game, Death Run, and Surf. Counterstrike Global Offensive, the latest and greatest in FPS innovation, released on August 1st, 2012. This game has added the most to the series. Huge graphical updates, audio and communications updates, dedicated Valve servers for matchmaking, casual, demolition, arms race, and deathmatch. Offline with bots and weapons practice were added to help new players. A whole range of guns were added, like the CZ75, the P2000, new knives, and the Negev. And unlike other Counter-Strike games, Global Offensive gets constant updates for maps and various game mechanics such as new spray patterns, model updates, and weapon balancing. A year after the game's release, weapon skins were introduced. You could acquire them by opening cases with a key, buying them off the market, or trading with another user. Each skin has a certain rarity, and the more rare a skin is, the more it costs, and usually the better it will look. These virtual skins range in price from 3 cents up to $16,000. With esports being as big as they are, and CSGO being a very competitive game, you can see how well they pair. The first ever appearance of Counter-Strike at an esports event was in 2000 at CGL, although it was not a major feature at the event. In December of 2001, it was one of the headlining games at World Cyber Games Tournament, along with StarCraft and 4 others. At WCG in November of 2005, CS Source made its first appearance in the competitive scene. Since then, esports has grown drastically, and CSGO has become a forerunner in professional competitive gaming. Now there are several giant esports events dedicated solely to CSGO, such as Katowice, Cologne, and ESEA, where the prize pools range from thousands to millions of dollars. Since 1999, Counter-Strike has been refined and polished to make CSGO the much-loved game that it is today. But the hit reg is still pretty broken.
Has managed to spot it. What? How is that not a kill? He looked dead on there.
No smooth.